know Drake Maye, second-year quarterback for the Patriots who is about to start in the Super Bowl. But did you know there's another Maye who is a March Madness legend? Yes, Luke Maye from 2016 to 2019 played a massive role in North Carolina's sustained dominance. A guy who came into Chapel Hill with very little hype turned out to be one of the most iconic Tar Heels of all time. He was reliable, he gave his all every single possession, and he could deliver down the stretch in big-time moments. More on that later. Today we're going to break down the entire career of Luke Maye and learn why Drake's success was not a surprise. The University of North Carolina is in the Maye family DNA. Mark Maye, Luke and Drake's dad, played football at North Carolina where he was the starting quarterback in 1986 and 1987. The Maye boys grew up die-hard Tar Heel fans, and Luke's lifelong dream was to play there. Growing to a solid 6'8", 225-pound frame by his junior year in high school, Luke was playing really well and was getting attention from college coaches. He had a sizable list of offers, including a handful of ACC offers. Luke held offers from Clemson, Virginia, Georgia Tech, and Virginia Tech, but he hadn't gotten his dream North Carolina offer yet. Well, sort of. Coach Roy Williams and the North Carolina coaching staff were actually very fond of Maye's game, but they did not have enough scholarship spots available for him. Roy offered a walk-on spot to Luke, and it wasn't a pity walk-on spot either. Roy actually believed he could develop into a good player at the ACC level. So Luke had a big decision to make. He was between taking a full-ride scholarship to go play for Clemson or Davidson, or take the walk-on offer and go play for North Carolina. He ultimately decided that the best place for him to become the best player he could be was North Carolina. Being able to compete and practice every day against the best college basketball players in the country and being under the guidance of one of the greatest college basketball coaches of all time were things that Luke believed would go a very long way in his development. But basketball was not the only factor in the decision. Luke was a really smart guy, and North Carolina had a really good business school. He thought about life after basketball and knew having a degree from North Carolina would set him up for success. Luke committed to North Carolina as a preferred walk-on in November of 2014, right before his senior year. And when he would play on the road, student sections would chant walk-on and say things like he would never get playing time there, which is ironic because 5 months later, a scholarship opened up after JP Tokido declared for the NBA draft. Luke would have a full-ride scholarship to go play at North Carolina. Coming into the 2016 season, North Carolina was the preseason #1 ranked team. Returning almost everyone from the year before that made the Sweet 16, the Tar Heels had by far the best roster in the country. Bryce Johnson, Marcus Page, Justin Jackson, Isaiah Hicks, Kennedy Meeks, Theo Pinson, Joel Berry, and then there was Luke, who did not expect to get a big amount of minutes his freshman season, and he was okay with that. He used his freshman season to work his ass off, and through the advice of his dad, Luke was one of the hardest workers every single day in practice. His dad told him to make practice his games, meaning go as hard as you would in a game during practice. Roy was really impressed with Luke's progression in the preseason, and he gave Luke minutes throughout the season, real minutes too. They weren't all garbage time minutes. Anytime Bryce Johnson or the rest of the bigs needed a breather, Roy put Luke in for a few minutes, and he played his role pretty well. He played sound defense and got after it down low, hauling in some rebounds. Luke was able to play without being a liability, and Roy knew he had potential down the line to be a big-time player at North Carolina. Really solid in-game experience for Luke as a freshman. The Tar Heels went into the tournament at 28-6, earning a 1 seed, and we all know how this story ends. North Carolina makes it to the national championship in Houston, Texas to face the Villanova Wildcats. In one of the greatest games of all time, Marcus Page is going to make this impossible shot to tie the game with 4 seconds left. Ryan Arcidiacono takes it up the floor, dumps it to Chris Jenkins. That shot is good, and North Carolina is going to fall to Villanova in the national championship. Now, Luke didn't play at all in this game, but being the team player he was, this loss really hurt him, and he was determined to avenge it the next season. North Carolina was set to return most of the 2016 squad in 2017. Johnson and Page were gone, but Berry, Meeks, Hicks, Pinson, and Jackson all returned. After proving he could handle himself in big-time college basketball his freshman year, Luke was going to step into a bigger role this season. He saw more minutes in 2017, and instead of just being a guy to come in and hold his own so the main guys could get a breather, he actually became a pretty good scoring option off the bench and was one of the best rebounders on the team. Him actually being a threat offensively opened opened up more opportunities and better overall spacing for the Tar Heel offense. He was a perfect complement to the stars on the floor. Something Luke never did was force stupid, unnecessary shots or drives to the basket. Every time he shot, it was a good look through a pick and pop or trailing during transition. He also always positioned himself for putbacks because this guy was a rebounding hoss. Defensively, Luke was a perfect guy for Roy's system. He wasn't making flashy blocks or anything like that, but he was rarely ever out of position. He was always communicating, and if you were going to get an offensive rebound with Luke Maye under the basket, you were going to have to earn it. With Luke not being one of the primary scorers on offense, he had to make quick decisions and reads when the ball got in his hands, and this is something he was really good at. He rarely over-dribbled and rarely hesitated to make decisions. It was always catch, then shoot, pass, or cut. North Carolina finished 27-7, and just like last season, earned a 1 seed in the NCAA tournament. After handling Texas Southern in the round of 64, the Heels met 8 seed Arkansas in the round of 32. Luke didn't play much in the second half. Arkansas caught fire and went on a really big run to actually take the lead. The Stars were on the floor for the rest of the game, and down the stretch, they found a way to win. North Carolina survives Arkansas. In the Sweet 16, North Carolina would face 4 seed Butler in Memphis, and Luke put on an absolute show. He was all over the place, knocked down 3 threes and hauled in 12 boards in 25 minutes. That is elite rebounding pace. And while this was one of Luke's best performances, it wasn't a fluke by any means. 12 rebounds wasn't even his career high at the time, and all year he had been a solid three-point shooter. Being able to step up in the freaking NCAA tournament and put on that kind of performance is no fluke. North Carolina won 92-80, and they were moving on to the Elite Eight, where the whole world was about to learn Luke Maye's name. Facing a really good Kentucky team full of future NBA stars, this game was an all-time March Madness classic. The bluest of blue bloods going at it for a spot in the Final Four. It looks like North Carolina is pulling away with under a minute left, up by 7, but De'Aaron Fox is going to hit a 3 in the corner to cut it to 4. North Carolina trying to pull away, but they cannot inbound the ball in time. Kentucky's getting it back. The madness is ensuing, ladies and gentlemen. Malik Monk from the top of the key, and that is good. And just like that, Kentucky cuts it to 1. Meeks trying not to get another 5-second violation. He inbounds it to Luke, and he heaves it down the court to Jackson under the basket, and he's going to lay it in. Great court vision from Luke. On the next possession, Jackson misses his 1-on-1 opportunity. Fox gets the rebound. Isaiah Briscoe takes it up the court, and he's going to dish it to Malik Monk. Can he make it again? It's good! We are tied. Inbound to Pinson, and Roy is not going to call a timeout. Pinson's going to drive to the basket. Oh, wait, there's Luke. It's good if it goes. Oh, he made it. Luke Maye has won it for the Tar Heels. Unbelievable. There's 0.3 seconds left on the clock, but it does not matter. Luke Maye just made the shot heard around the world, and North Carolina is headed to the Final Four. Let's take another look at this shot. This was a beautiful play by Pinson and Luke. Their lack of panic proves that they were prepared for this moment, and they have practiced it plenty of times. Pinson able to draw in the Kentucky defense and allow Luke to flare out and set his feet for a possible shot was textbook. And this was not a lucky shot. Luke did not miss a beat. His feet were set, his form was perfect, and he didn't hesitate for a split second. What an incredible moment, and what an incredible game. Oh, and remember how I said earlier that another reason Luke chose North Carolina was because of academics? Well, guess what? This guy literally showed up to class the next day for his Monday 8 a.m. business class. The team didn't get back to campus until 3 a.m., but that did not stop Luke from going to class. They even gave him a standing ovation. What a scholar. As awesome and iconic as the shot was, it means nothing if the Tar Heels don't win the national championship. North Carolina faced the 3 seed out of the Midwest, Oregon, for a spot in the national championship. This was another game where North Carolina had a comfortable lead late in the second half, but once again let it slip. But in the last seconds, Kennedy Meeks is going to get a huge rebound on a missed free throw to seal it, and the Tar Heels are headed back to the national championship. This time around, they would face Gonzaga, the 1 seed out of the West, and Gonzaga was a big team. They had a ton of size, 3 7-footers. It was a physical basketball game, and the refs blew their whistle a ton for both teams in the second half. But in the end, after a block by Meeks and a slam by Jackson, the North Carolina Tar Heels have avenged the 2016 loss to Villanova, and they are the 2017 national champions. And surprisingly, Luke had a relatively quiet Final Four and national championship, but he still played his role well and didn't make many mistakes. But he did not care. All he wanted to do was win the national championship, and he and the Tar Heels did just that. It was going to be a much different role for Luke in the 2018 season. Now it was his time to be a leader of the team. Knowing he was going to be a starter, he worked maybe the hardest he's ever worked in the offseason, and it absolutely paid off. Luke averaged 16 points and 10 rebounds a night. It was like every night night, he played the way he played against Butler in Kentucky in the tournament. He was one of the best forwards in the ACC in 2018. He was first team All-ACC and won the ACC Most Improved Player Award. Luke was mainly positioned at the high post or the elbow on most possessions, and he really mastered the Roy Williams style of basketball. He had one of the best basketball IQs in the country that season, and that's something that made him stand out even as a freshman. He always took high percentage shots. Luke was one of the best three-point shooting bigs in the country this season. North Carolina as a team was still a solid squad, even though a ton of the stars from the national championship team were gone. Barry and Pinson both returned, and Cam Johnson was a really good transfer. North Carolina went into the tournament at 25-10, earning the 2 seed in the West, where they took care of Lipscomb in the round of 64, but they got it absolutely handed to them by Texas A&M in the round of 32. North Carolina shot 6 for 31 from 3, and at one point in the game, they were shooting 6% from 3. A&M shot 10 for 24 from 3, and that's basically the story of the game. It was Texas A&M's night, and it was not North Carolina's. Luke didn't have the best night himself, but that's not enough to take away how great of a season he had. After initially declaring for the NBA draft, Luke decided to return to North Carolina for his senior year. Barry and Pinson were gone, but 2 5-star freshmen, Nazir Little and Kobe White, arrived, and the Heels were a pretty hyped-up team going into the season. Luke reprised his role in the starting lineup, and he had played on some pretty fast-paced teams his first 3 years, but this team was very fast. The 2019 North Carolina offense always pushed the ball in transition, looking for opportunities early in the shot clock. And it was a good fit for Luke. He finished the season averaging 15 points and 10 rebounds per game, another good season as a starter. Going into the game against Duke in 2019, Luke knew he was going to have to guard Zion Williamson, who was absolutely terrorizing all of college basketball. But instead, just under a minute into the game, this dude's shoe just imploded, and Zion suffered a right knee sprain, and not having Zion in the game certainly made it an easier night for Luke. He scored 30 points. However, in the ACC tournament, Zion returned and went nuclear, and in Luke's defense, nobody on North Carolina could stop him. Luke's final game against Duke ended in a loss, but overall he went 6-5. A winning record versus Duke is something a North Carolina player always strives for. Entering the tournament as a 1 seed with a 27-6 record, the Heels coasted to the Sweet 16. But they ran into one of the hottest teams in the tournament, as Auburn simply could not miss from 3. Auburn beat North Carolina at its own game. The Tigers played fast and efficient basketball, and they just executed better than North Carolina did. With a 97-80 loss, Luke played his final game as a North Carolina Tar Heel. After the 2019 season, Luke played with the Bucks G League team, but his time was cut short when COVID hit, and Luke tried his luck overseas. Over the last 6 years, Luke has played for numerous overseas squads in multiple countries. As a matter of fact, he's still playing today in Japan. He's still dropping around 15 a night. But man, what an awesome legacy Luke Maye left at North Carolina. From a guy who didn't even know if he was going to be on scholarship to hitting one of the greatest shots in not only North Carolina history, but in March Madness history. Luke is an absolute North Carolina legend, and that 2017 national championship does not happen without him. Luke won the national championship. Can Drake win the Super Bowl and be the second Maye brother to win a championship? We shall see, but Drake's success is no surprise because Luke already had the world on notice of the Maye last name. That's gonna do it for this video. Be sure to like, comment, and subscribe. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I will see you all in the next video.